Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of Live from Our Living Room. Today, my very special guest is Morgan Douglas, who is part of our Stairway worship team. And when he's not playing drums for us, either during our Sunday services or during recordings or on mission trips, he's very busy working and playing in other bands and being husband to the amazing Hayley and dad to the awesome Levi and Jada. So, welcome, my guest, Morgan Douglas.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming, Morgs. So before we get started with today's topic, I've mentioned already that you play drums in our worship team at Stairway Church. So just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your journey as a drummer. Where did it begin? How did you learn? And how did you get to the point that you're at today?
Okay, so I started playing drums when I was 12.
Yep.
And that was just from tapping on a bunch of stuff around the house, and Dad got sick of it, so he put me into formal lessons from 12, and I did that for 4 or 5 years. But kind of 6 months after I'd kind of picked up some sticks, I joined a band. It was really random. There were a bunch of 20-year-olds. They didn't have a drummer, and I was going to a youth group at the time, and I just started playing there, and one of the leaders I think that was there was just like, "Oh, you can play drums, we need a drummer, do you want to play?"
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a ska band way back in the day called the Frugals, and I ended up we did some pretty cool stuff, but went from that to going to uni. I started a Bachelor of Contemporary Music in Lismore, and then kind of from there cover bands and session gigs, and but the whole time I was doing that, I was always in church, always playing in church. I think church was definitely my training ground with playing, learning how to play with other musos, and so that's in a nutshell of my drumming history.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure for a lot of people, playing in the church band is the way they've learned how to play with other musos and all that sort of thing. So it's great that you can bring that context for everyone tonight. So today we're going to talk a bit about the rhythm section of a band. And so I'm super glad that you're here because I know absolutely nothing about it. And I'm sure tonight we've got lots of either experienced musos or budding musos who are watching tonight, hoping to maybe share some insight, but also ask you some questions. So before we sort of get into it a bit more deeply, can you just start by telling us what exactly is the rhythm section?
Oh, it's pretty subjective. So, I mean, traditionally a rhythm section is drums, bass, and kind of percussive instruments. That kind of would be, I guess, classed as the section. I think the way that I see it is probably more around. It's not a section as such. Getting really deep here. It's not a section as such. It's more like just a part of the band. So. As in everyone has a role to play in being in that rhythm section. So it's so rhythm section being it's pulse, it's rhythm, it's space, it's patterns, it's anything that has a sound with, I guess, rhythmic forms, kind of becomes part of the rhythm section, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
it's not just a guy up the back hitting things and a guy with the daddy guitar, the big deep guitar, the bass, playing a bunch of stuff. It's everyone that has any kind of rhythm in the sound they're making. So if any one of those pieces don't quite fit together, then it's quite obvious, and then everyone just blames
if that spoons player isn't keeping up, then it's not cool.
100%. Yeah. Get off the stage.
So can you elaborate a bit more then on what the role of the rhythm section or of those players, however you want to define them, is within the greater team?
I guess so. The rhythm section has a huge control and influence over how music sits.
Yeah.
So it's more than just tempo and keeping time and creating rhythms. It's it greatly influences spaces and mood and intensity and dynamics and energy levels. So I guess in the space of worship music, it greatly influences atmosphere and I guess engagement in the room as well. So the rhythm section can be, really beautiful, and quite often it's at its best when it's unnoticeable. it just feels good. And I guess for the a person who perhaps is not a musician may not be able to explain why it feels good, or there's something that they're really connecting with. Um, that that's the kind of thing where it's unnoticeable, but something feels good, or it can be totally distracting and off-putting. If you've got someone not fitting, like I was talking about before. And so I guess that part of a rhythm section is to be really gelled and locked, to be on the same page, to be communicating well. Communication doesn't necessarily need to be through the MD. It can just be knowing the people you're playing with. It can be, and in the role of worship, it's definitely knowing, knowing the people that you're playing with, but it's also knowing the voice of the Holy Spirit, what He's doing in the room, and having that familiar place of where you've been with Him before, and then I guess allowing Him to take you further in different circumstances. And the rhythm section plays a crucial part in all of that. So
yeah. Maybe we can elaborate a bit more on the specific role of the rhythm section when it comes to the context of a worship team, because it's not just that it's a different genre of music to, say, funk or jazz. It's also that the way that the team operates and the culture of the team is quite different to those other types of bands. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so I guess you could say like a core difference between, say, a jazz band, versus a worship band is that we're trying to achieve something different.
Yep.
I guess a jazz or a funk band is trying to achieve a level of satisfaction in their own playing, or to get an audience reaction, or I guess, or other external goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to worship, we're trying to match and flow what the Holy Spirit is doing. And sorry, this is my thought. This is my thought space up here, kind of looking up here. So, I guess we're trying to match what the Holy Spirit is doing, and most of the time we're trying to get out of the way. So, I guess as a rhythm section in worship, the audience is different. As in, we're not there to play to people and please people. And this is probably outside of the rhythm section now. We're talking as a band, but I guess hand in hand, what we are trying to do there is listen to the Holy Spirit. What's He doing in this kind of space of worship where everyone's come together for to do the same thing for a common cause, and our role is to listen to what He's doing and basically get out of the way. Go with the dynamics, go with the flow, be able to technically go there with our musicianship. So as a drummer, it's being able to play patterns in time, tempo, all that kind of stuff that we talked about before is what a rhythm section traditionally is. But also, as that section, to be able to flow musically. Thinking out loud. I think we can probably elaborate on that too further. Yeah, there's a big difference between technical proficiency and musicianship, and that's the big journey I'm on at the moment. But so I guess to wrap that up, I'd say jazz, funk covers, all that other stuff. That's to please an audience. That's they want to be entertained, whereas worship really has I guess an audience of one. Sounds a little bit cheesy, but that's what it is. We're there to worship, and it's not for people that are coming along to church to be entertained. It's not for me to get my playing fix or anything like that. We're there to worship. So it doesn't matter if I've got killer chops or a great groove or tight rhythm section. That doesn't impress God. He's so it's I guess it's really about listening and observing what He's doing in the music and in the people who are worshiping together. So we're just there to partner with that, get out of the way, go along with it when we can.
Yeah, that's great. There's a couple of things that you said in there that I'd really like to pick up on. One was, you said within the role of the worship team, it's not just about the rhythm section. There's the whole team is at play in terms of what you're doing and how you're working together, how you collaborate. And so you've got to really really strong relationship with the whole team, but in particular when it's during worship, you need to have a really good connection with the MD and also with the worship leader. How do you go about that?
I guess there's a bunch of different ways. So at Stairway, we put a really strong emphasis on relationship outside of just playing. So, and we spend a lot of time doing that as a team. Through the times that we get together, but also we hang out. We hang out outside of church. My church mates are just my mates. So it's I don't have a difference. So pretty fortunate that I guess the MD a lot of the time is always a great friend. So that helps with the communication piece, but there's still that element of playing without talking, with communicating. So we'll have different MDs that MD very, very differently. I don't know what you call what I just said or what I just did, but anyway.
They do it differently.
Yeah. So we'll have someone that will MD and talk a lot, and that provides great, I guess, training and safety for some of the guys who perhaps aren't as confident when they're on stage. But then we'll have guys they'll MD just through their playing. And so I guess it's about knowing that person, knowing the style. When it comes to how I flow with an MD, I'm listening to two people. I'm listening to the worship leader and I'm listening to the MD. And the MD is sometimes that safety place where it's, all right, guys, let's step it up a notch, or let's bring it back. And I think that's because we rotate musicians quite a lot on the Sunday and different events and all that kind of stuff that we do at Stairway. It's really important to have someone there that can provide that kind of, I guess, consistent level of here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, because you're always playing with different people and the rhythm section changes so much as well. So I'll be on kit, but it could be one of 5 or 6 bass players. There could be percussion over to the side. And like I was saying before, it's kind of the whole band. So you can have acoustic guitar and keys, which can quite easily fit into a rhythm section, and we're playing with different people all the time. So it's not as easy from that end to communicate just through your playing, because you're always playing with different people. So the MD plays a crucial role in that. We're very fortunate. We've got some amazing guys at Stairway that can do that. So
yeah, absolutely. And we're very fortunate to have a very large team at Stairway as well, with people who serve multiple functions and bring lots of different talents and skills and experience to the team. Perhaps for someone who's watching this video either tonight or in the future who's from a much smaller worship team, is there any advice that you would give them in terms of what their rhythm section should consider when it comes to worshipping on a Sunday?
Ooh, yeah.
I've thrown a curly one in, sorry.
No, that's cool. I think it is that, for me, it is that piece of relationship and hanging out. So you've got to be familiar off the stage as you are on. So, I mean, you hear of so many bands that, started out great mates, ended up with a lot of success and whatever, and touring the world now and all that kind of stuff, but they end up hating each other off stage. I think it's such a sad story, and you can usually see it in their playing too. Their creativity disappears. It's so often when you see people say things like, I like your old stuff better than your new stuff, with so many bands. And it's usually from a place of, well, that's usually when the band was, I guess in its best form, when relationships were good and all that kind of stuff. And it's not always the case, but I would say, spend that time developing relationships off the stage and on the stage. You shouldn't have an imbalance. For the rhythm section, I guess in the traditional sense, so drummers and bass players, we all grew up listening to different stuff. We've got everything at the moment from, Barry, our bass player, who's on the older side of life. There's no,
Barry
Barry's a bit
is
older. Great
watching.
guy. I love Barry. I love you, Barry. So Barry's going to have different musical influences, which have informed, I guess, his style of playing. Than, for
Yep.
example, someone who's getting up on stage, a 17-year-old or whatever, who's just learning his way through scales and whatever, and is probably quite nervous and scared, doesn't really know what to do, and is looking for some direction from the band. And he's going to have influences that from people I've probably never heard of. So
Yep.
I think that's where that kind of familiar piece is really important, is kind of knowing that person, talking about what kind of stuff are you into. You might get a bit of a sense of, what's influenced their playing. And then that helps that musical side of it with the gel. The relationship side is just being comfortable on stage, making eye contact, making mistakes. Making mistakes is totally fine. The more mistakes you make, the better, because the more mistakes you learn from, the better.
Yep.
I've made loads of absolute clangers, in really public places that, I'd love to forget. But, they also help you remember as a rhythm section, that worked, that didn't work, and hopefully that made sense.
Yes, it did. Something else that you touched on earlier that I want to revisit is that difference from being someone who's focused on the technical precision of their skill and their craft to being a musician. Can you talk us through what you perceive to be the difference between those sort of two stages to be at as a drummer?
So I guess as a drummer, but I guess in general, anyone that plays any instrument, there's a big difference in just being a technically proficient player and being a musician. They're definitely not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, you need to be a technically proficient player to be an incredible musician. But yeah, so then they're not mutually exclusive, but they have very different characteristics. I would say it's a difference between, and I think I mentioned earlier, it's a difference between what feels good and versus what sounds good.
Yeah.
This has been one for me that I've been. I hate the word journey. I have to say it though. This has been like my journey. Journey is like that word for me. It's like anyway. But I can't escape it. Like it's at church, it's at work.
Your
it's,
path.
But I don't have a better
I'm
word.
only going to give you
whatever.
synonyms. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I think it is the difference between what feels good and what sounds good. And I think you find like the beautiful marriage of great music is when those two things line up naturally. But I think that takes a lot of work, and that's probably been what I've been focusing on over the last probably since I arrived in Melbourne around 7 years ago. So I came from a place where I'd done a lot of technical work when I was younger, and I sight read and got right into that. I went through the AMEB grades. I guess all the technical stuff that I learnt at uni, and all the breaking down and analysis of music and all of that kind of stuff. But I guess what I was missing was that an element of musicianship that was, this actually sounds good when I do this, but it might not be what I feel like playing in the moment because I've rehearsed how to, smash out some really technical hand technique and sticking patterns and all that kind of stuff. And quite often I would get into scenarios where I think, this feels good because I can nail this really complex pattern or chop or whatever in time, come back on the one, sounds dope to me. But then so many situations where I'd been, particularly in recording situations, and I'd get the feedback, be like, that was cool, but let's go back and don't do any of what you just did, and let's just keep it. Yeah, let's just focus on tone and hitting the drum like in the center and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just drums. I think it applies to any musician or anyone that plays an instrument. And I guess it's really evident in a rhythm section. You might be able to play, like I was saying, you might be able to play complex patterns or have crazy chops. But if it distracts people from what you're actually there to do, then what's the point? If I can play like, this amazing kind of pattern over the bar, and it might feel great to me, but it sounds terrible and really distracting for the people that are
Yeah.
either there to watch a great band, or but more importantly, and with what we're talking about, to worship God. It can be really distracting and actually
Yeah.
take away from what God's trying to do in the room. And I feel so many times when I watch back on stuff that I've done in the past that felt good in the moment, and I think I'd even come off stage going, yeah, that was great, smashed it, nailed it. And then I watch back and I'll be like, oh, that's terrible. Why did I do that? And I think, those are the moments where I felt God go, are you done? Like, I think you've had your moment. Like, I'm trying to speak when you're doing that stuff, so I'm going to wait for you to do your thing. And now can I go? Like, now can
Yeah,
I?
that's great.
So yeah, like I say, really important to have the technical ability, and I'm a massive advocate for putting the work in, and learning your instrument, learning your craft, not just I guess the technical parts of it, but how to tune it, and how to take care of your gear. I'm in a process at the moment where I've got great gear and I've put working with drums, and I have absolutely no idea how to record any of it. So I've since the whole isolation thing, I've been going through this kind of massive learning journey around how to record music, and really
Yeah.
fortunate that I've got some amazing guys that are helping me out along the way, and have lots of patience with me. But yeah, it's cool. It's been lots of fun. I think never stop learning. All the cliche sayings. But yeah, I guess back to that point. I think it's, from a practical point of view, it's really important to listen back to your own playing.
Yep.
Ask for feedback. So probably more to the question you asked before as well, with some of the younger players coming up and whatever. I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that you really respect musically, but also spiritually, and so in church, out church, whatever. I think it's just really important to look for honest and respectful feedback, kind of as you're kind of up and coming, and that never stops. I'm always seeking feedback around, and if I'm not seeking feedback, I'm really critical of myself. So it's could I have done that better? When I watch and listen back to myself, sometimes it's really difficult to think, oh, why, this is going to sound a bit weird, but I'm playing ghost notes. I shouldn't be playing ghost notes. I should be keeping it really simple and just focusing on nice tone and all this kind of stuff. So for the musos watching, I think you'd understand, I guess that element where, it's quite easy to play something that feels good in the moment, or feel like you nailed something that was normally quite complex, but it can be quite distracting,
Yep.
or takes away from the music and the experience. So
That's great.
and also listen to other people that do it well. Find people that do it well, listen to it, and that's where you should be doing your breakdown analysis, and listen to what they're doing. The beauty's in the simplicity a lot of the time. So
Who are you listening to at the moment?
from a worship perspective, I'm probably on the Maverick City train. What those guys are doing is incredible. Quite often I still go back to some of the older Bethel stuff, and I just that's where I've been doing a lot of analysis lately, just around everything's really simple, and but in its place. And it's that, I think that's where is probably a great example of knowing what sounds good and then practicing that, so that then becomes what feels good.
Yes.
So I want to be able to get on stage and play something that feels good, because I've practiced what sounds good so much.
Yeah.
And that's the point where I'm at the moment. I definitely haven't nailed that, and I still, on the regular, watch back on something and be like, that sucked. I shouldn't have done that. And, and not to beat yourself up kind of thing, but like, hey, I can learn from that, so that next time I'm on stage and I feel like playing that same pattern or going to a build in that place or whatever, it's more like, actually, I know that when I did that last time, it didn't land where I wanted it to, or whatever, or I didn't come in like beautifully on the one, so it took away some of that tension and release. And so being, I guess, a lot more conscious about those kinds of things is really important. That's, where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, great. We've got a couple of questions, so we will throw to those. Audience, if you do have a question or a comment that you wanted to add, it's not too late, so please do add that. The first question is, we mistakenly, and apologies to our audience, just used the term MD so casually. What is an MD, Morgs?
It's a Morgan Douglas, for those of you that don't know.
That had been put down as the answer.
Yeah. Just ask you Morgan Douglas at your church how you can have relation. No. So it's musical director. So what we have on stage at Stairway will be an MD, musical director, who is essentially guiding the band through transitions of songs, but also chord changes sometimes, or different sections that we're coming up to. Might be the repeat chorus, all that kind of stuff. The way that we have that set up is through a silent mic, if you will. So they're talking to the band through a microphone, but it's only coming through the monitors. So we're all running in-ears. And obviously doesn't go through front of house. I grew up, again, playing in church. We'd still have MDs, so guys that'd be guiding the band around, but that would just be through a turning around and like a head nod or a yell, or there's a lot of like these and all different hand signals that you get. MD, musical director, is basically someone who's caretaking the band for the session.
Okay, great. And a very important question, can you give the audience some tips for their air drumming? That was a question.
Is that coming from Ali, or is that Anna?
Darling, yes.
Okay. Tips for your air drumming. Ali, you probably need some no, I won't say. You probably need some longer arms. So, tips for your air drumming. Jeez. You got to buy some good air drumming sticks and work on your spins. That's critical.
Critical.
I love you, Ali. Sorry, I didn't mean to joke about short arms. Love you. You're the best.
Yep, excellent. Alrighty, we're pretty much out of time. So we're going to finish with a little section we like to call 5 favourites. So I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions. Morgan Douglas, what is your favourite holiday that you've been on?
We recently returned from Tasmania, and that was epic.
Loved it?
Yeah.
Gorgeous. What is your favourite TV show?
Oh, Hals and I are really behind the times. We just finished Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I loved it. She not so much, but I loved it. I thought it was great.
It wasn't my style.
But I would say probably in recent times, Billions is one of my favorites. I love Billions.
Yeah, nice. What's your favorite type of takeaway to get?
There's an epic joint down, I think it's Heatherdale Road, and it's called McKelly's. It's an Italian restaurant not far from us, and it's like, you just got to go there. Just get it.
Okay, thanks for the tip. I'm going to try it out.
Yeah.
What's your favourite dance floor song?
Dance floor song?
Yep. You're at a wedding, it comes on, go to get up and dance.
Oh. Probably anything that's going to take away or distract people from how terrible I am at dancing. I don't even know what that would be. Probably something really slow that I can slow dance. I can do that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just stand in one spot and just rock side to side. And that's
but
cool.
Hayley loves it.
I think Hayley appreciates the fact that I'm making an effort. So anything slow, we'll go with that.
Okay, it's lovely. And the last one is, what's your favourite thing about staying home?
It's been this. So this is actually the first time I've had my drums set up at home in 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been really fun. It's felt really weird. And I started off being like, I can't bug the neighbors, and now I'm like, I don't care. So, I'm just gonna play. And and learning how to record. That's been amazing. Joel Dowling, you're the best.
Awesome. Big shout out to the Dowlings this evening for excellent questions and recording advice.
There we go.
Well, Morgs, thanks so much for your time. It was great to have you on live from our living room. We are so grateful for all that you have contributed in terms of sharing your experience and your passion for playing drums in our worship team and sharing a bit about the rhythm section. So thank you so much. Can't wait to see you soon. And to all of our audience, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. Can't wait to see you then. Bye, everyone.